When we talk about biceps tendinopathy, there's lots of areas that we need to consider. Of course, we need to talk about the bicep, but the tendon itself runs up through the shoulder, so we also need to talk about that. You can't talk about the shoulder without talking about the shoulder blade. And you can't talk about the shoulder blade without talking about the thoracic spine and rib cage. You can't talk about the ribs without talking about the pelvis. We're an integrated system, and all of these things could play a part in what results in biceps tendinopathy. So I'm going to talk you through how all of these potential issues and factors relate, and then I'm going to give you an exercise that will address all of these points in one go. First of all, it may just be that your programmed workouts have exceeded the tolerance of the tissue in your bicep. So it may just be that you have to make adjustments to your sets, your reps, your intensity, the speed at which you're doing things, just to allow that bicep tissue to get a little bit of a rest and to build up and make a bit slower progress to guarantee more longer term progress. In the short term though, we want to get some relief, and what we need to do with tendons is not rest them, but we actually need to load them in a very specific manner. Particularly, we need to use isometric and eccentric tensions. So what that means is isometric is when you're stood still, so if you're holding weight like this, that's an isometric load. Eccentric is when we've got a slight stretch coming through the bicep like this. So those types of contractions are what we need to focus on. Preacher curl is a great tool to do this. So you put a light weight on, you curl it with two arms, you take one hand away and you extend the arm really, really slowly. And depending on the tempo that you use, you can do anywhere from 3 to 10 reps. And you'll often find quite quickly that that alleviates some of the initial angry symptoms that you may be experiencing. Second of all, the biceps tendon runs up the front of the shoulder, so if anything is causing your shoulder to push forward like this, you could just be closing off space for that tendon to run through and creating some irritation. You may feel it down here, but it may be coming from up here. This is why many people get a tendinopathy flare-up with low bar squats, with the bar on their back forcing their shoulders into this really forward position if they haven't got the external rotation to get a good grip on the bar. Some easy ways to address that in the short term or potentially long term is to take a wider hand position. It requires less external rotation. And a cue that I like to use is pull the bar apart. It just helps cue a bit more space into the shoulder. We need to start addressing this. A lot of people's go-to is going to be retraction, but as you can see, you can retract and still keep a forward tilt. We need to look at the tilt of the humerus, this upper arm bone in the socket. And what we need to get is this posterior tilt to put it back into a more neutral position. And the way we do that, as you see, is by pushing the elbow forward. What you might also notice is that that will help my shoulder blade to adhere back down and posteriorly tilt back onto my rib cage. We want our shoulder blades to be flat against our rib cage, not wing up like this. That is going to happen with an anterior tilt like this. And if we can apply a posterior tilt, we'll put that shoulder blade into a better position to glide around the rib cage as we move our shoulder. Creating that posterior tilt is going to be really, really difficult if we're stuck in a kyphotic position like this. So if we're rounded through our upper back and through our thoracic spine, this is generally the shoulder posture that's going to follow. Trying to create some posterior tilt in this position is really, really challenging. So we need to get some extension through the T-spine, and you'll see that oftentimes my shoulders just come with me when I do that. The problem with a lot of our T-spine extension drills is that we create a global extension through the whole spine, and we don't actually target the thoracic spine. So I'm going to move this back a little bit so hopefully you can see. If I do an extension posture like this, you can see I'm getting loads of extension. So imagine I'm lying flat on the floor on my front, and I'm doing a prone cobra. I've got loads of spinal extension, but my actual upper back is still rounded. Instead, if I pull the belly button in and notice how my pelvis will drop into a neutral position, then I can drive extension through my upper back. And here I've got loads of muscular tension around my T-spine to lift my sternum and create that extension posture. So whenever we're cueing thoracic extension, we need to take the pelvis into account. We can't get all our extension from the lumbar spine, which is an easy compensation. We need to isolate it into the thoracic. So for this exercise, we're going to need a wall and we're going to need a band. So what we're going to do is set up about a foot's length away from the wall, and we're going to step onto the band. The closer you stand to the wall, the harder it's going to be to adhere to the postural cues. So start with a decent distance from the wall, and then you can progress as your ability dictates. So first of all, we want to set the posture. So what we're trying to do is draw the belly button into the wall. We're trying to flatten our lower back against the wall. Once we've got that established, we're going to lift the sternum. So again, trying to flatten the upper back against the wall, even right up to the neck if possible. And we're just trying to create as flat a posture against the wall as possible. Next, we're going to pay attention to the shoulders. So for most of us, including myself, our shoulders are going to be slightly forward in this position. What we want to do is open up the chest to pull a little bit of width in there, and we're going to try and get our shoulders, just the backs of our shoulders, brushing against the wall. What we don't want to do is squeeze the shoulder blades back like that. As you'll see, that kind of, well, you might not see, it's going to pop the middle of my spine off like this with too much retraction squeezing me off the wall. I want to keep the wide position, keep the back flat, move the shoulders wide, and just see how close to the wall I can get it. From here, what most of us are going to have to do is use a little bit of a tilt of the humerus, so the upper arm bone. And the way we're going to do that is by lifting the elbows forward, allows the shoulders to tilt backwards. If you can't reach the wall with that cue, don't do anything crazy like lifting your elbows up like this. Just go as far as you can, open up the chest, think width through the shoulders, and just tilt them back and get as flat as everything on the back of your body, as flat to the wall as you possibly can. So, standing on the band, go through all the cues, belly button, sternum, lifting the shoulders, try and keep the neck relaxed as much as possible. And then we're going to take this underhand grip on the band. So here, once we've got tilt of the shoulders, we've got the isometric tension through the bicep, which is what we're looking for. And if we're pulling the band apart a little bit, we've got that active engagement of the rotator cuffs and the muscles around the shoulder blade. Just holding this position can be therapeutic for a biceps tendon, simply because of the isometric, but equally this is quite demanding on the posture and the rotator cuff, like I mentioned. To take this to the next level, we're just going to drive forward with the hands and pull the band apart. So here, as we've extended the arm, we've got the eccentric and now isometric load on the biceps tendon to a greater degree. And if we want to load the shoulders as well, we can drive up like this. And now we've got a concentric working through the anterior deltoid, down to here and up to here, pulling the band apart, trying to keep the hands supinated, so palms facing upwards. Very demanding if we take our time and adhere to the cues. As we lift up, we're going to get an extension torque through the back. We're trying to resist that. We're trying to drive the bottom ribs into the wall without rounding, so keeping the sternum lifted up. Lots going on with that exercise. We're addressing posture, we're addressing rotator cuff, we're hitting the biceps tendon. A great rehab, prehab exercise, but it's also a great little burn for the upper shoulders.